But before that, I would like to give some key takeaways to our audience from you, where some quick actions which they can take immediately on their, maybe somebody's from retail, somebody's from consumer facing business, somebody's from B2B, B2C, mid and small companies. So some quick key takeaways which they can go tomorrow and they can implement, and that can be a track towards digitalization in their organization and in their business, and then they can be ahead of the trends which are going on.
So quick ones would. So I'm assuming here. Let's say you're there's a company here which is let's say they are into garments, and apart from this market itself, they want to reach out to market outside. You know. Obviously, placement of your services across some of the platforms, e-commerce platforms, etc., is the most basic thing. But I think one of the things that they must always have is a desire to. It starts first with having a desire to have access to the consumer on your own. And in this, to me, at this point in time, one of the biggest hacks is building and working on WhatsApp for business. That's a great space. There are tremendous initiatives that Meta is taking. I think you will find a lot in that. Second, be hugely curious. Go deeper into ONDC that I spoke about as an example. And I think the third, I hear a lot at all points in time, particularly when I'm from a I grew up, born, brought up from a town up north, Allahabad, now called Prayagraj. So, like the panelists last session was talking a lot about small town and big town and whatever it is. But I think when you look at, we talk about talent as a big issue, right? Here again, I believe the Skill India initiative. You will be amazed at the amount of talent that you can get just by going down that entire approach to Skill India that's happening. In a lot of areas of businesses, that's a quick hack as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you on that. So, talking about Hungama, you started Hungama almost a long back. So, if you have to start all over again, is there anything that you would do differently this time?
Sure. I haven't spoken about Hungama, but before I answer your question, just for the benefit of the audience, give them a little sense and idea. So yeah, I mean, Hungama, in the last 23, 24 years, company has served about a total of roughly about 1.6 billion unique consumers, both the domestic and international.
That's a big number, 1.6 billion users.
We've worked with, as an entity in the last about 15, 16 years. There's about $2.2 billion of digital goods that have been sold. We've returned about closer to about $750, $800 million into the content industry. We've taken our content. The beauty about the entertainment industry is that I often mention that we are one of the most underrated entities as far as it's Indian cinema is today viewed in 127 countries. It's dubbed in 35 different languages. There are about 4.5 billion admission tickets. So it's a great ambassador. And as the economic corridors between India, Germany, India, Japan, India, USA, whatever is happening, one of the things that is also a softer power is the cultures that get served. And that's the world that I come from. What would I have done differently? I think our go-to market, we went to international markets about 6 or 7 years after launching. We're now live in about 47 countries. Right now, about a fourth of our business comes from the international markets. I believe I would have gone much sooner into international markets. I believe other than that, the industry itself has evolved to such a level. At that time, we started off with what we call as the lightest asset class, because in audio, music is the lightest asset class. It's like 5, 6 MB, because I'm talking an edge 3G world, as it were. As evolution happened, you went into short video, then you went into long video, then you into gaming, and today into more immersive VR, extended reality, etc. So I think just the manner in which it would be a far more, as I said, it will be not a singular. I'm selling music or I'm selling video or games. It will be a more unified experience. Is what would probably be done right now.
Very nice. Uh, so, taking a clue, talking about young entrepreneurs, maybe what do you feel entrepreneurship as in part of school curriculum? What do you advise? What should happen on those thoughts? Like, give some thoughts on that.
Yeah. So you talk entrepreneurship. Firstly, I must acknowledge. I think uh, if you go back 30 years, and Jay mentioned it in his opening keynote, TiEcon is one of those unique organizations in the world which was one of the first ones to talk about entrepreneurship globally. I was privileged to be amongst the 7 people back in January or February of 2000 with people like Harish Mehta, Praveen Gandhi, Saurabh Srivastav, and Atul Nishar, along with Kanwal Lekhi, etc., who sort of started the Thai Mumbai chapter. And I think there's now, I will respond to your question that it's not just entrepreneurship that should be encouraged. I believe that we are at a very interesting juncture right now with Gen AI that's underway. I believe along with entrepreneurship, there should be a strong component of encouraging creativity and the artistic creative side to our education ecosystem. Because our education ecosystem, if even 10 years back we thought was changing, and let's say COVID through entire learning, online learning, etc., that happened, with Gen AI, this changes things totally. One of the people I had the privilege of meeting 8, 9 months back was Jensen Huang, who's the founder of NVIDIA. Probably if you were to single out a single person as the oracle of this entire ecosystem, you kind of roll back into him and that company. He's been quoted in many places as saying that the entire aspect of software development, coding as we know it, is going to sort of cease to exist in its current avatar. And which is why what we start talking about, like this whole theme around prompt engineers, what is it really? It's about asking a question in a more creative manner. It's asking about, and I'll try and express this for you and try and take you into a little bit of an imagination zone here. See, what you must understand is that whatever has transpired with AI and Gen AI in the last 2.5 years, just shut your eyes and think of it like this, that there is this system which is technically already learned whatever has happened to humanity in the last 10,000 years. Okay, it's done. And it is consistently now thinking and drawing. So when we post things like that, okay, draw me a cat on a beach riding a tiger, it's able to do that. The world that the generations to come are going to be dealing with a new kind of being which is able to think and imagine something which has not been prevalent, right? And that's where the creative thought process becomes very, very key as well. Entrepreneurship to me is a absolute, you're witnessing the creator economy, and the growth of the creator economy is actually nothing but millions of entrepreneurs in whichever field it may be. I am good at cooking. That's all I want to do. I don't want to make products. I want to talk about it. There's a little homemaker in Indore who is in a position to get a following of a certain amount and is making a living in a certain way. But this culmination of creative thinking with entrepreneurship, to me, that's the most exciting prospects of the next decade.
So, taking on this again, same what you're talking, can AI be a threat to creativity of artists, or maybe it can actually help assist them in their work? What do you feel like?
Yeah, so it's actually it'll start with disruption. It will always in technology. You go back any period, and then I don't mean technology as in you go back to the printing press and whatever. The first phase of technology is always disruptive. It seems that, right. That is pretty much the entire component that comes around as well. I remember about this is almost about 7, 8 years back. I was at a forum, and in those days there was a man called Thomas Frey. Thomas Frey, if you would Google him, then he's one of the top 3 futurists on Google. And every time I meet someone like that, the first thing I always check is, "Acha, aapne 10 saal pehle kya bola tha?" In this person's instance, 8 out of 10 things that he had predicted. What he spoke about, Sawan, was he said that over the next, this was 2016-17, he talked about 2030. He says 2 billion jobs on the planet will get disrupted. I was, like most of us at that time, we were like shaken up. I went across, hosted a session, chatted with him. So I said, "You mean 2 billion jobs will not exist?" He said, "No, I don't mean that." He said, "I believe they need to get reskilled." Now, when you look at it, my father, he was, he started off, set up a restaurant, he set up a couple of stores. In his own way, he was like a little entrepreneur in a small town in Allahabad. Most of my generation, they have gone through maybe 3 jobs, 4 jobs. The number of resumes that we come across right now, someone who started a career even 8, 10 years back has already done 5, 6 jobs. And my sense is the next decade of people who are coming, they're going to have to prepare themselves for 12, 15 different types of jobs. They'll just need to reskill themselves in that. So I think these are all longish answer to your question, but these are all tools which post the disruption phase, humanity will learn how to sort of tame them in a certain way. But yes, this one is a lot more disruptive, and that's why it requires the right balance between the right guardrails, right kind of regulatory ecosystem, because the work has already happened. It has already learned it. I mean, fun story to just for the benefit of all. The origins of this company dates back. I mean, actually, back in 2014, there was a very big event that happened. There's a company started by a guy called Demis Habasis from UK, and he ran a company called DeepMind. And DeepMind was then bought by Google in 2014 for a princely sum of $400 million. DeepMind is the backbone to what is Google, Gemini, Bard, etc. Exactly within about 6-9 months of that, there were 3 people who got very uneasy with this acquisition. These 3 people went by the name of Peter Thiel, another one by the name of Elon Musk, the third one, I'm sorry, I don't remember his name. But they decided that we need to back something as a counter. And there was a very eclectic group of founders, 7 of them. One of them was Ilya, and a whole bunch of these folks from largely, from emanating from Eastern Europe side. And they backed it with about $100 million. That company was OpenAI. Cut to about 2018-19. Technically, Google was very ready to unleash what they had. But if you recollect that time, it was also a time which was the congressional hearings were happening of the Trump election and interference that had taken place. Not as, and the three companies that were on stage at that time were, you know, Meta was of course sort of almost deemed like Darth Vader. You had Google, which was like a little bit of a Sith Lord, and I think Apple was kind of probably trying to be in the Jedi camp, as it were. I'm sorry, my entertainment sort of analogies continue here. But the point I'm trying to make is that at that time was not the best time for them to be able to talk about their platform. Cut to 2020, when the moment you had COVID, and we had about $8-9 trillion of cash that got sort of literally created over a matter of a couple of quarters. And that's the time that the first $1 billion check came in for OpenAI. Otherwise, OpenAI never had a chance to match up. And it was followed by, with obviously Microsoft doing this, another $1 billion. So what I'm saying is, we don't know if this has been unleashed onto humanity too early. And perhaps there is one more Indian who is the answer to that, and that man goes by the name of Satya Nadella. He's obviously brought this forward, but I am supremely confident and optimistic in our ability to convert this into an opportunity as opposed to the threat that it's made out.
Got it. So I have a lot of questions. So maybe we can just give a very quick answer. Which AI product India is going to give to world in near future?
I think there should be opportunities from the Bhashini driven and the ecosystem that will come around. I can talk about one company in Bombay which is doing a fun job called InVideo.
Okay. So this is what is the future of using audio on social media networks and social commerce platforms, and how it helps in user engagement.
So audio as a fan factor is growing. We're seeing a lot of that, not just from music perspective, but the growth of podcasts and the kind of advent of storytelling. And what's also happening is the meshing between audio and some amount of generative AI driven animation is also leading to very interesting form of storytelling. Think of this as, for those who were at that time Inspector Vikram or Inspector Eagle listening on radio kind of program.
How Hungama is using AI or planning to use AI?
So as a digital media company, we've always had machine learning and AI in search and discovery, recommendation, etc. Today, our use case, the three key use cases for us is in Gen AI and video production, which I spoke about. We are also looking at more and more personalized, hyper-personalization as content.
Rise of deep fake view.
Again, as I said, it starts with creating a scare, but stems from that. I'll give you an example of a company which originated from a deep fake environment about 2.5 years ago. Right now, as we speak, they are working on one of the biggest projects in Hollywood, a Tom Hanks film called Here. And what they are ending up doing is what would have cost that film production. This is a Robert Zemeckis production, which is Back to the Future, Forrest Gump, that producer. What would have cost him about $35 million in VFX. This company is delivering that in about $4 million. What would have cost him 42 weeks to deliver is being done in 16 weeks. But it's an origin of the deepfake economy.
Got it. Can you elaborate on the monetization use cases emerging out of the DPI ONDC evaluation? What's the timeline in your opinion?
Yeah, I didn't catch that question.
Can you elaborate on the monetization use cases emerging out of the DPI ONDC evaluation? What's the timeline in your opinion?
UPI. Yeah. So UPI, I think, is well known. It's there. My sense is ONDC is going to be certainly more challenging, but I believe over the next 3 years, UPI also, just for you to know, started in 2016. It's only around 2020 where it crossed that 100 million transaction kind of ecosystem and then went into a 15 billion ecosystem. So I would say I'm not going to bet on the value to it, because the value part, I think the next 10 years, probably roughly about $1.5 trillion of e-commerce business will be created. My sense is ONDC could certainly enable 20% of that.
So we are short on time and a lot of questions. So one last question. I was checking on a video where M5 Huawei has launched an AI car in China. How much time it will take to build something like this and use in India?
So, tough question. I believe partly two big companies out of India are certainly in this, which is both Tata's and Mahindra's. Uh, the competitive edge, as I spoke about in my talk, which China has on the supply chain of battery tech is a big, big plus for them. The second big plus that's working for them is the software layer which they are porting from their mobility and their smart TV ecosystem. Because in that world, between companies like Huawei, Xiaomi, Oppo, Vivo, and smart TV ecosystem or connected device ecosystem like companies like Hisense, etc., that software layer is an added advantage. But I believe companies like Tata Elxsi, etc., are doing a great job in bringing about those experiences. So my hope is that with in about 3-4 years, we should be in a position to start exporting as well. Automobiles, EV vehicles stemming from this market into the other international markets.
Got it. Last suggestion, as you are in Indore, Madhya Pradesh, we have a lot of history in Madhya Pradesh. So, few thoughts for our entrepreneurs, few ideas which they can work on for new startup, new ideas, maybe on tourism, maybe on history. Some final notes on that.
Sure, I think that's a great question, and we are in the literally in the heart of India. I think one of the probable very interesting use cases of augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality, as it were, is going to be in the space of tourism. Largely being able to create real life kind of experiences for anybody, anywhere in the world, and thereby creating curiosity to drive people back the second being the fact that with schemes like Udan, etc., numerous of our cities are getting connected. Therefore, in the tourism space, there is a big, big space. In this area, in fact, Prime Minister just tweeted 3 days back, about 4 years or 5 years back, four of us who engaged with Prime Minister's office, with Ministry of IND, and our attempt was to try and do what happened with Indian software industry 35, 40 years back. If you go back, there were three key things that happened at that time. One, Government of India initially said that there would be a 10-year tax break, which was extended further, I think, by 10 and 5 more years or something like that. Second was, you had an instance of hardware at that time being totally tax-free, and we took this mandate to the Government of India saying, let's do something for the AVGC sector. AVGC is an acronym for Animation, VFX, Gaming, Comics, and we added to that XR. Again, a fine example of how the government is working right now. We were surprised because in April, the government mandated 7 of us as part of the task force. We were given 90 days to write policy. There were 6 ministries which were co-opted within this. They did, fully organized meeting sessions, etc., about 15, 16 of those. On the 94th day, we submitted. That policy has gotten implemented. Their charter was to create an economy of about $90 billion by 2032 and 2 million new jobs. One of the big beneficiaries of that is going to be tourism, and to that extent, the state of Madhya Pradesh, there could be some amazing things that can be built now using these newer technologies.
Thank you so much, Neeraj ji. It was really nice talking to you, and I think we have to conclude this session. I'll request Tanmay Rawat from Softute for a felicitation of the day. Thank you so much.
I request Ankit Verma as well from Equity.